Okay, so today we're going to go through how we did this lightsaber project with Goliath Games. So the project involves some animation as well, but today I'm just going to go through project breakdown of how we created these renders here. I think they're super cool. It was honestly a really fun project. After I show you the project for this file and some tips about the project and how you can achieve this yourself, we're then going to take a lightsaber model and we're going to redo the lighting, but with the same technique. And we're going to make a render for ourselves so that you can follow along. So yeah, let's do this. Before we start, quick plug of the product visualization and animation course. So yeah, roll the tape on that one. Okay, so we're in the scene here. And the most interesting thing about our work on this project was the fact that we didn't actually use any area lights, spotlights, point lights, or sunlights for lighting this product. We only used a plane, actually two planes, and a little bit of HDRI lighting. So let me show you the workflow, and like I said, we're then going to recreate this with a different model. So the first thing, before you even light the product, if you're working with a lightsaber or a similar product with metallic features, so honestly this could work for any product that kind of has the same shape and same materials as a lightsaber. We're just using a lightsaber in this example. First of all, you need to make sure that the textures are correct. So you want to make sure that especially the roughness of the material is matching the amount of reflection that you want on the product. And there might be different parts of the product where you want there to be less roughness, such as, for example, right here. So make sure you go through your product, and if there's any features that you want to include, as you can see here, we have this sort of speckled material on these sections here. Add those. The model that we're going to be working with later does also have some wear and tear textures, so if you want to do that, do that. But this tutorial specifically is about the lighting technique. So the way we set up these lights, if you start out with the scene, and if we actually turn off the HDRI as well. Now, these images were focused around a black background. As you can see, when we did the work with Goliath, we optimized the lighting for a black background. And when you optimize, you really have to think about the background that's going to be used for the render. The reason it's important is because it needs to look good and it needs to work on that color background. Now, if the client doesn't know what background that they want, and they want it to be on a transparent background, then you're going to have to just work in the middle. So you're going to light it based on a grey background or a slightly not too saturated, but a sort of pastel color. And that means that it will hopefully work on most backgrounds. The way you go about lighting something to fit on a background is you need to make sure that you look at the edges and ensure that also the brightness of the product matches the background. We knew we were going to have a black background. So for that reason, we're going to start with a black background. Now, I'm sure you probably could achieve this lighting with using area lights, but the reason we use planes is for this example here. So first of all, we have the black background, and the reason this is important is because basically anywhere where light is not hitting, it's going to be black. Now, if you want this to be lighter, this is where the world lighting comes in, because essentially this point here, there's no light hitting the product. So at the moment, because we have no world light and we have no other lights affecting that area, it's completely black. And we want this on this render specifically because you want to have that contrast. If you're looking for a dramatic render like this, you want there to be lots of variation in lighting, which makes contrast, which makes the product stand out and makes it look premium as well. So for this first version, we just want to get a nice key light on top of the product. With the plane, what we've been able to do is create something using the plane. We have direct control over where the lighting hits, which you can do with an area light. We thought it was just quite a creative way to have more control over the lighting. Now, a technique that we use for the other plane, which we use, as you can see, these planes are turned off in rare visibility. So they're not actually showing up in the scene, otherwise they would look like this. Okay. So you can see we've done something extra with this bottom one here. So let's take a look at this. So what we've basically done is that while working on the product, we've added these planes, and we've realized that, for example, this plane here, let's add these back in. This plane here, it has different materials set on the plane. And the reason this is that we realized that for this material alone, if you use completely white, you can see that we have this white highlight around the product. And this is too much, okay? So this might work on a white background, but on the black background, we wanted that dark lighting underneath the product, so that it sort of shaped it in a better way. You see, for example, here you have this black line and then you have this white line above. All these contrasting areas of darkness and light helps shape the product and also make it look premium photorealistic. So the way we achieved this was basically going on to the actual plane, which is why it was really nice to use planes, because you have a lot of direct control. And we actually changed some of the faces using the material editor here to black. So you can see the effect this has on the product if we then turn it off in the camera. So this is affecting this bottom side here, and that means that we actually have control over how much light is hitting the bottom side of the saber. So if we go darker, you can see it get darker underneath the saber, and if you go lighter, we can increase that. So this means that you can do this method on a different lightsaber, on a different product with different shape, and it would still work. All you need to do is add the plane around the product, start moving them around, add it with just emission to start with, and then play around with it. If your product's looking too light and you're like, I want some shadow here, I want some shadow underneath, then take a look at the product, even move the plane. So if you want some shadow underneath, you know the world light is black, so that means that you might be able to just, let's say for example, just remove this face, or maybe move this face back. And as you can see, as I move this back, it's creating more shadow, and you can adjust exactly where you want the shadow to be. If you want a more dramatic effect, you could go here. You can also do the same thing with the top one here. So as you can see, as I move this, this is adjusting where the top light is falling on our product, and because it's a cylinder product, as we move it, it's basically coming down the product. Same here, as you can see, we've already done some lining up here to make this work, and we also did the same thing with this top product. So if we turn off the camera here, turn on your camera, we can see this is all just light. So that means that above this is black, because we know that because our world tab has nothing in it. So what we can do is we can move this down, and as you can see, it's going to remove the light on top of the product. And now if you do where the HDRI comes into play, so we've just got an HDRI here, which is from Polyhaven, and if you need this, you can add this as well. So this is basically going to, instead of it being black around the product, this is now going to be an HDRI. All this does is basically add a bit of definition to the darkness. So if I turn this off, you can see that it's just complete black. Now this is actually okay in some areas. I quite like this at the top. But as you can see, for this area here, it looks very odd. It kind of looks like this part of the product is missing. It's too black. Now you could adjust this using the plane if you wanted. So for example, you can move the plane to light it a little bit, and eventually you would get it where it's lighting. But maybe that's too much. So what you can do is you can add this HDRI, and this all depends on the HDRI. And as you can see, we've added a hue sat node to reduce the saturation, because we don't want any color on the product. We want it to be metallic and white and black. And just in these areas here, you can see as I turn it off and on, it's just added some reflections just to this section. It also fills in the product a little bit more, which means you can adjust the amount depending on how much you want it to do that. As you can see, this will be quite a lot. It doesn't really work on a black background, it's too bright. This is less. One final thing about this method before we show one more project and then we go into doing it ourselves with a new lightsaber. We actually took this a step further with this plane, and we actually did a gradient material on this face, which meant that we could then have a gradient reflection. If this gradient is happening here, And all we've done is basically we've had mapping nodes, gradient texture into a color ramp. And we're basically doing the same thing that we were doing at the bottom of the product, where we was adjusting the darkness of the light. This is basically just changing the intensity. But if you want a bit more definition, and if you want a bit more control, we actually wanted a bit of a gradient. We wanted it to be darker in the middle and lighter here, because as you can see, it's a bit flat without it. And this gradient is helping, it really just helps the product look more premium, and it helps it make it look cool and a cool effect. So as you can see, as I move this gradient, it changes the lighting. So as I pull this away, it's making this middle section more grey or darker. It makes the light less intense. As I move this one away, it does the same thing. And you can really just play around with it until you have a lighting that you like. And you can technically add this to the other lights in the scene. And as you can see, we got quite creative with the shape of this plane, as I was playing around with it for quite a while. And I can't tell you specifically how you need to set that up for your own product. But as you can see down here, we went to such an extent that we basically have, let's see if we get this into the camera. Let me show it for a sec. So you've got the gradient here. We even have a break here where we have light, so that we have the darkness underneath the product, and then we have this very fine white line, which is underneath the lightsaber. And this is being created by this right here, and I'll show you it is, because if we make this material dark, you can see the differences. So if we, it's a bit annoying not to do that, but there we go. So if I make this material darker, you can see that white line go. So if you want that, or if you don't want that, you can then adjust that there. So that also is affecting this line here. But if you didn't want it to, you just add another material and find out what plane it is that's causing that reflection. Maybe it's this one, maybe it's this one. Let's see. I believe it's this one. So if you want that there, that's fine. If you don't want it there, you bring it up. You know, if you want it there, a bit bigger, you can adjust it there. So a lot of very fine control. Let me show you another scene. We actually did this on a dual lightsaber, which is another toy from Goliath Games. Let's add the background back in so we can see the black background. So we did the same thing at a later date, and we used the same method. We actually copy and pasted the planes over because it works so well. So as you can see, this has the HDRI in it. This is a great one for reflections on. This is a great HDRI for reflections on a metallic product. No saturation, but if I remove that now, you can see that we just literally have two planes. And the first one is the same again. It's just a white light, but you can see how if we change the shape of this, it is going to change the way the light works. So it kind of adjusts where the lighting is going to fall, and you could do this with area lights, but we wanted the greater control that the material reflections can have inside the shader node. As you can see, we used the same lighting here with a gradient to create this effect. Now you might be wondering, what about the blades? What about the glow of the blades? And when we did the project, we actually used a different method to the one that I'm going to show you in this video. I'm going to show you the method that we did use originally. So there's actually multiple ways you can do this, but the way that we did it originally is that we just rendered out a render with red lightsabers, and then we added a glow effect in Photoshop. Okay, and you can see we also did this for this saber here, and you can see we have the hilts are separate, so we rendered them separately, and it just has a plain blade, and then we rendered these separately and added the glow to it. You can see it's affecting that a little bit, so it's quite nice. Lots of different colors. You could do it like that, and to do it like that, all you need to do is render it out and then go in Photoshop. However, if you want to do this inside Blender And let's say, for example, you're doing an animation. You're not going to want to do it that way because you're going to have to do that for every single frame. And if you're rendering animation, that's a silly idea. That's going to take forever. Okay, so in preparation for this video, I decided to go back into the scene and just quickly discover a method to do this within Blender using the compositor. So if you're making a lightsaber scene or an animation, this is the way that I would recommend to do it. So the way we've done it this way is that we've split the scene. So we've created a full copy of the scene. And in this one, we just have the hilt. And then we've created a new one where we have the blade. So as you can see, we have the blade here, and the product is in this file here. We've removed the lighting because we don't need that. The real magic's in the compositing. So what you need to do is set up this compositing setup. So you've basically got one view layer, one scene is the hilt, and you're going to render that one out. So you're going to hit render on that, or you can render image. And the second one is the blade, and we're going to add the glare within the compositor. You're going to go glare, change it to either fog glow or bloom, and then you're going to mess around with the settings. So if I quickly render the hilt side, because unfortunately it's not showing up. Just a note, you need to make sure that you have transparency back on for this, because we're going to use a alpha over node to basically mix the two scenes together. So you need to have transparency around the product. Okay, so let's render our blade quick. So for that, it's literally just the blade. Okay, there we go. So we've got our blade, we've got some bloom going on there. So as you can see, this is the setup I use for compositing, by the way. And I'll show you this in the next file because we're going to go and do it from scratch. So with the glare here, I've adjusted the thresholds to sort of change how it looks. So you can change the smoothness, you can change the threshold. That's going to change it a little bit as well, or quite a lot actually. The strength should change it. There you go. And if you put the saturation on 0, you can actually completely change the color within the compositor. Reduce the size if you want it super glaring, or if you want it less. And then you can see this node set up here, just so I can show you. Render layers into alpha over. Set up alpha over this one. Place the two together, put it in the compositor, and then when you got your compositor here, you got your different view layers. And you got the compositor. And if you want, you can change the order. So for example, you can have, so this is changing which one's on top. So right now the blade is behind. So if you don't want the glare of the blade to be on your blade, then you can put the blade below the hilt, the layer, or you can put them, you can put them the other way, and then you get a bit of the glare on the blade. Now, if this is happening, this is basically because the original file was red, and we basically adjusted it in compositing. So some of the colors will be difficult to make work. So this is kind of looking a bit bright. So maybe you can see if we remove the strength, it kind of goes red. So if you are having trouble with colors, and let's say for example this is like really good on the outside, but it's looking too white in the middle, then it's because your colors are just too far apart. And in which case, then you will just have to go back and just change it to blue. There we go. So that's looking good. Make it a bit darker. And yeah, there you go. Let's go into a new scene. We've got an Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber that we've downloaded from CG Trader. We did pay for it, but you could do this with your own model that you 3D modeled, or you could do it with a free model, or you can get the one that I got. So that's going to be the end of this video. I was going to do one whole video, but actually it's longer than I thought. So in the next section, we're going to take a new lightsaber, Obi-Wan Kenobi's, and we're going to light it, and I'm going to use this exact same method. As you can see, this is the final file of the work that we did in the next section. You can see we use the gradient method again, and we use planes only with HDRI to light this, and we also added the glare effect to have this final output. So that's going to be in the next video. That may be multiple videos depending on the length. So make sure if you want to see when that video comes live, make sure you hit the subscribe button below. Please comment below if this helped you, and if you're looking forward to the next section. Again, if you're interested in the course we have coming up, the Zero to Hero Renderly product rendering course, head over to the website and sign up for the waiting list. You'll get a discount when the course is available. Thanks again for watching, and yeah, look forward to the next one.